Epilogue.
O heavenly bird, death is better than those means of livelihood which make you sluggish in your soaring flight. Allama Muhammad Iqbal. On the 2nd of May, traveling to Sukkur from Karachi early in the morning, I heard the news, US Navy commandos had killed Osama bin Laden in a helicopter raid in Abbottabad. It was bad enough that the world's most wanted man was not found in some cave but in a city only 50 kilometers from Islamabad, and a mile from Pakistan's military academy. What made it worse was that the news was broken to us Pakistanis, and the rest of the world, by President Obama. It was several hours later when a statement came from our government congratulating the US and taking credit for providing the US with all the information about Osama's location. This begged the obvious question for all Pakistanis: if we knew about his whereabouts, then why did we not capture him ourselves? The media in India and the rest of the world went wild, blaming Pakistan's ISI, in other words, the army, for having kept Osama in a safe house for the past 6 years. The foreign media managed to find me in Sindh. I had no clue what to say, hoping that the civilian and the military leadership would provide us with answers. But rather than provide any answers, our leaders added to our embarrassment by constantly changing their statements. 3 days later, the army chief denied all knowledge of the operation and announced that any such violation of our sovereignty would not be tolerated again. A week later the PM only added to the confusion when he finally gave a statement, suggesting a matching response to any attack against Pakistan's strategic assets. For Pakistanis, especially those living abroad, this was one of the most humiliating and painful times. The SEA chief Panetta further rubbed salt in our wounds by bluntly saying that the Pakistan government was either incompetent or complicit. Ours is a country that has fought the US's war for the last 8 years when we had nothing to do with 9/11. Pakistan has over 34,000 people dead, including 6,000 soldiers, has lost $68 billion, while the total aid coming into the country amounted to $20 billion, and has over 500,000 people from our tribal areas internally displaced, and with 50% facing unprecedented poverty, while 140,000 Pakistani soldiers were deployed all along our border. It is probably the only time in history that a country has kept getting bombed, through drone attacks, by its ally. A US soldier in Afghanistan costs the US $1 million per year whilst a Pakistani soldier costs a mere $900 to the US. Yet here we were, embarrassed and humiliated. Now there was a sense of foreboding that the US would push its puppet government in Islamabad to do more, i.e. conduct more operations in our tribal areas, and specifically in North Waziristan. All Pakistanis knew that the backlash from these operations would be felt in our urban centers with more suicide attacks. Al-Qaeda and the Taliban had already announced that they would attack our government and army to avenge Osama because they had collaborated in his killing. And sure enough, the month of May saw a series of suicide attacks against the Pakistan security forces, the worst being on the naval headquarters in Karachi and on an army camp in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, where 100 soldiers died. We are in a nutcracker situation, with extremists attacking us from within while the US puts pressure on the army to conduct more operations. Worse, if any international terrorism takes place, especially in the US, Pakistan could be in real danger of being bombed. I feel that the 2nd of May could be a historical crossroads for Pakistan. Everyone is beginning to think that unless we change the way our country has been run so far, we are doomed. The ruling elite has been completely exposed. General Ziauddin Butt, who served as the head of the ISI under Musharraf, stated on the 30th of May that General Musharraf had kept Osama in the safe house in Abbottabad to milk the US for dollars. Even if this is a false allegation, one thing is for certain: our ruling elite took us into this war with a web of lies and deceit for only one reason: US dollars. And whilst this aid has brought the country to its knees, the ruling elite has never had it so good. Neither the people of Pakistan, nor the rest of the world, trusts this elite anymore. The US openly accuses Pakistan of playing a double game. The greatest danger we face today is that if we keep pursuing the current strategy of taking aid from the US and bombing our own people, we could be pushing our army towards rebellion. After the 2nd of May, the army faced unprecedented criticism from within the country as well as from the West. Polls show that 80% of Pakistan's people consider the US to be an enemy, because they believe that the US is not fighting a war against terror but against Islam. The same spread of opinion must exist within the Pakistan Armed Forces. The fact that only a few instances of terrorism have come from within the army so far is due to the excellent discipline that exists in the institution. There is a feeling of humiliation within the army, similar to that felt after the surrender of 90,000 soldiers in East Pakistan in 1971. The policy of making our army kill its own people while the ruling elite rake in dollars is no longer feasible. It is only a matter of time before serious unrest within the army could throw the country into total chaos. The regular revelations in the WikiLeaks cables, showing the ruling elite to be two-faced and totally subservient to the US Embassy in Islamabad, have further accelerated the movement for change. A country that begs and borrows for its survival had to face such humiliation sooner or later. The way forward has to be for this puppet government to resign, as it has failed on every front. Then, under the auspices of the Supreme Court, free and fair elections should be held. Only free and fair elections will bring in a credible sovereign government that represents the aspirations of the people of Pakistan. Pakistan should disengage from this insane and immoral war. It should immediately open a dialogue with the various militant groups, as the US has done in Afghanistan, and set a timetable for the withdrawal of our troops from the tribal areas. A credible Pakistan government can play a role in helping the US make an exit from Afghanistan. The key to winning against terrorism is winning the hearts and minds of the people. If the community from which the terrorist is operating considers the militants terrorists, the war is going to be won. If they consider them freedom fighters, history tells us it cannot be won. This new government should immediately thank the US for all the aid given so far and say, no more. It should also say goodbye to the IMF once and for all, as the IMF's conditionality enriches the rich and impoverishes the poor. Without foreign aid, the government will be forced to balance its revenues and expenditure, which would lead to the long overdue reforms that our country so desperately needs to survive. The government will have to lead by example. The Prime Minister, the Cabinet and the entire Parliament should declare their incomes and assets, and bring, for the first time, the rich and powerful under the tax net. It is worth noting that, before the French Revolution, the French nobility was exempt from taxes. A massive austerity campaign would build the taxpayers' confidence by reassuring them that the government cares about their taxes and is accountable to them. Pakistan is a country which, per capita, gives the highest amount in charity. I am one of the biggest collectors of donations, and paradoxically pays the least amount in taxes. Our tax revenue is 9% of our GDP, amongst the lowest in the world. The reason is that not only do the ruling elite not pay taxes, but a large part of the people's taxes disappears through corruption, while the people see no returns for this taxation. Hard work and honesty need to be rewarded rather than penalized. We need surgical reforms in our governance system to tackle corruption, improve the police and lower judiciary, develop an effective local government system and create an environment which would invite investment from overseas Pakistanis, our biggest asset. We face an emergency in our education system. Not only must it be radically reformed but funding must be increased threefold. We need to have a new relationship with our tribal areas, where the lives of 6 million proud and honorable people have been devastated. There will have to be a South African-style, truth and reconciliation, process, involving not only people from within our tribal areas who had taken up arms against our army, but also the old militant groups created during the days when our ruling elite were making dollars from the US-sponsored jihad. All militant groups within the country, including the private guards of politicians, should be disbanded, and the country de-weaponized. Our foreign policy has to be sovereign and needs to be reviewed with all our neighbors, especially India. All our disputes with India should be settled through political dialogue, and the activities of the intelligence agencies of both countries must be curtailed. Only a credible and sovereign government can guarantee the US that there will be no terrorism in the future from Pakistan's soil. The US should be made to understand that it is in their interests to back a sovereign democratic government in Pakistan. The policy of planting pliant puppets has failed in Pakistan, just as it is failing across the entire Middle East, as shown by the Arab Spring. To persist with this policy will only increase anti-Americanism, which would help the terrorists. Had Obama stood with Hosni Mubarak, the Egyptians in the street would now be chanting anti-American slogans, as happened when the US backed the Shah of Iran and opposed a popular democratic movement. The threat to the universe is not from Islam or any great religion but from naked materialism. In the name of protecting our interests, the powerful have always plundered the resources of the weak. The hope of saving our planet lies in collaboration, rather than competition, amongst all the great religions of the world, along with the environmental movements that are fighting against limitless consumption and environmental degradation. Islam urges its followers to take care of the environment, to step lightly on this earth. As Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, said, "Live in the world as if you are living for 1,000 years, and live for the next world as if you will die tomorrow." Finally, only a credible government can save and strengthen the Pakistan Army by making sure that it remains within its constitutional role. According to WikiLeaks, our former finance minister, Shaukat Tareen, asked the US ambassador Annie Patterson how much aid was being given to the Pakistan Army. Never again should such a situation be allowed to arise. Neither should our army chief ever be allowed to talk directly to the US or any other government. The example for Pakistan is that of Turkey, where the army, which kept destabilizing democratic governments, had a constitutional role to uphold its secular ideology. It took a credible leader, of the stature of Erdogan, whose dynamic leadership and great moral authority has put the army in its rightful place, and taken Turkey towards a genuine democracy. The reason Erdogan could do this was because of his brilliant performance in tripling Turkey's per capita income to $10,000 a year and registering the second highest growth rate after China. We have no other choice. In order to survive, we have to make Pakistan a genuine democracy as envisaged by our great leader Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Some 7 years ago, when my party was down in the dumps, and had hit rock bottom, my old and most loyal friend Goldie, Omar Farooq, and I called on Mia Bashir, who was not feeling well. The party was going through its most difficult phase. We were barely able to keep our heads above water and fighting for our survival. Uncharacteristically, Goldie was beginning to lose hope, and he asked Mia Bashir, "When will our party come into power?" Mia Bashir closed his eyes and meditated for about 5 minutes, then opened them and looked at me as he said, "When I was ready to take on the responsibility." When he said that, it occurred to me that I wasn't ready. 15 years after forming the party, I feel that my party and I are not only ready, but that mine is the only party that can get Pakistan out of its current desperate crisis. After 14 years of the most difficult struggle in my life, my party is finally taking off, spreading like wildfire across the country, so that today it is the first choice of 70% of Pakistanis under the age of 30. This is backed up in 2 recent polls. YouGov recorded 61% of respondents favoring my party, and another poll, conducted by the US Pew Research Center, had my party rated by 68% as favorable, an increase of over 16% since last year. For the first time, I feel Tehreek-e-Insaf is the idea whose time has come. Islamabad, June 2011.